Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. In this presentation, I'll be sharing how I use the PDSA cycle to create a learner-centered assessment in my third grade classroom. We'll look at what a learner-centered assessment means, how the PDSA cycle supports it, and I'll walk you through an example I've designed and piloted in my very own classroom. So, what is learner-centered assessment? Learner-centered assessment shifts the focus from teacher-led testing to student engagement. It encourages students to reflect on their own learning using self or peer feedback and take ownership of their progress. These assessments are often more authentic and they're deeply connected to real skills. The PDSA cycle, developed by W. Edwards Deming and later applied in education by La Lopa, provides a framework for continuous improvement through planning, action, reflection, and revision. The PDS cycle, which stands for Plan, Do, Study, Act, is a model for continuous improvement. It helps us try new strategies thoughtfully, analyze what's working, and make data-informed adjustments. For this example today, I used this cycle to design a writing assessment focused on reflection and peer feedback. So let's get into it. The first step of the PDSA cycle is to plan. The goal of my assessment in my room was to help students deepen their understanding of informational writing by engaging in peer feedback and self-reflection. I made sure the assessment aligned with the criteria like authenticity, collaboration, and student ownership. I piloted this with my third grade class of 20 students. Just to give you a little bit of a background, it's a very diverse group. We have several students with IEPs and we have English learners. I expected the assessment to help students improve their drafts, but mostly feel more confident about their writing. So this assessment took place across 3 days. Students wrote an informational paragraph, assessed their own work, exchanged papers for peer feedback, and then revised. I collected data through rubrics, reflection forums, and my own anecdotal notes. Okay, on to the next step. To make the process meaningful, I designed simple tools. A rubric with I can statements, which you can see in the slide here on the right, a peer review checklist using on the left, using 2 stars and a wish, and a reflection form asking students what they did well, what they could improve, and how they used peer feedback. These tools, the rubric, the checklist, and the form, were designed to guide students through the writing process while promoting self-awareness and peer learning. With the assessment implemented, the next step was to study the impact it had on their learning. With the assessment in place, the next step in the PDSA cycle was to study its impact. I analyzed how closely student and peer ratings were aligned with my own. I reviewed their reflections for depth, and I compared first and final drafts to check for improvements. This gave me a clear picture of how well the assessment supported learning. As Brooke Hart emphasizes, effective feedback is most impactful when it's timely and specific. So I looked closely at how students use the peer and self-assessments to guide their revisions. Once the data is analyzed, now we need to respond to the results. For this example, when students didn't meet expectations, I intervened by either modeling feedback again individually or pulling small groups to practice specific writing skills. This flexible design lets me adjust my teaching in real time. So based on what I learned from the analyzing the results, I moved into the final phase of the PDSA cycle, which is ACT. This is where I made decisions about how to improve my assessment for future use. I know we've all heard in schools the worst thing you can do is say we've always done it that way. So we don't want to give up on the act piece. We need to improve what we're doing in the classroom. So next time I'll simplify some rubric language. I'm going to add sentence starters to help students give better feedback as well. I also plan to use this assessment early in their year so it becomes part of our writing routine. Overall, using the PDSA cycle to develop learner-centered assessments helped my students become more reflective and engaged writers. The process gave me valuable insights into their learning, and it showed me where I need to adjust my instruction. I encourage you to consider this approach for your own classrooms to promote student ownership and ongoing growth. Here are the sources that informed my process and design, and I'm so happy and thank you for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions or share materials if you'd like to try this in your own classroom.